Hey, this is TJ. How you doing? Thank you for joining me today. We're taking a deep dive. We're going to be looking into the Kodamo EssenceFM synthesizer. If you looked at the video I posted a few days ago, that was just a first look of the EssenceFM. I've taken a lot more time with it. I really like the synthesizer. It might actually take the title of my favorite one that I have right now. And today we're going to take a deep dive into every part of this awesome UI. It really makes FM synthesis easy and fun to use. We're going to look at some sounds as well, so have some fun with that. And also, we're going to take a look at some of the extra features that I didn't cover in the earlier video. If you like what you're watching here, I do ask you to share and subscribe to this channel. Check out tjontheroad.com for more. I really very much appreciate your support. Thank you so much. Hey, let's get started. So here it is, folks. It's the Kodamo EssenceFM. Really awesome. Let's take a quick look right here at the physical features and some of the basic layout. You have here the different layers of voice, patch, and performance that are available. And the way this basically works is the lowest layer is the voice. This is where you get the basic algorithms, the basic envelopes for each individual algorithms. I'm going to dive into that a little further later. And then you take the voices, those presets, and you can layer them up into a patch. So you can take a patch, edit that. Okay, let's go back to one I've already done. All right, you can take, say, up to as many as you want. I have 4 here. And you can layer them all together into one patch. Then you can take patches and you can move those into a performance. And this performance can be up to 16-part multi-timbral. Also in the performance mode, you can set it up for MPE playing, which works really great here with my Keyboard Pro 4. Now, the other physical features, obviously you have this gorgeous display. It works really well. Let's show you, say, for example, if you go to the waveforms and you want to draw a waveform. It's very responsive. I still have the plastic on here and it still works great. I'll probably leave the plastic on here because it works so well and to save the screen. You have on this side, these are the different control knobs, and these are very innovative in the way they work. Say, for example, if I was to go to a envelope, let's go over, say, the filter envelope. You'll see they have numbers on them, and those numbers correlate to the numbers on here so that you can make different movements on here and so forth. Those numbers correlate to the different parameters. So if you don't want to use your finger to move things around, you can still use the knob. Very handy. Next over here, we have a big jog wheel. That's also used similarly with the individual knobs over here. You have an undo button it is like unlimited undo and redo. You have these very handy copy and paste functions, and the way they work is anything that is highlighted, any parameter that's highlighted, or any performance that's highlighted, or any element that you're using is highlighted can be copied and can be pasted to a different location. Very, very handy. If you've made a change in your preset and you don't like it, there's a recall button. You can go right back to the old save preset. There is a save button, a nice panic button, really, really great. So if it does lock up, I haven't had that happen yet, but if it does lock up, there is a panic button. And then you have this cool preview button that will preview the sound, and then a increase and decrease of buttons that follow the patterns of the jog wheel. On the back here, you got 4 stereo pair outputs. Very awesome. You've got USB, you've got Ethernet, MIDI in and out and through, power supply. Really, really great connectivity. So let's go into the voice mode here. Select an empty one. We hit edit, and this gives you the basic algorithms that you start out with. And we're going to talk about the algorithms in a minute. I want to move over here to the screens. This allows you to set the volume for the individual voice, the transpose, the tuning. You can set the scale, equal temperament, or there's a lot of different scales that are available. Or you can do user scales. I'll show that also later in the video. You can assign a category to it, say if you want it to be a pad, drums, or other types of categories. And it has here the standard library that you would normally find, say, in a DX7. So if I scroll through those, you'll see all the typical DX7 stuff. All right, but that's not the real power here. The real power is the ability to move the algorithms and set them up the way that you want. And you can do that any way that you want. You can move that here. You can move that one up there, that one up there, move it over here. You can do things that you couldn't do with the DX7. Say you can take this operator and I want to connect it to number 1 here. So you could never do that with the DX7 or other FM synthesizers that I know of. You can mute the different ones. This is on mute. You can change the waveforms. There's 24 available waveforms. Half of them are user assignable. You can change the phase. You can change the multiplier. Whoops. You can change the multiplier, or I'll solo that for you so you can hear it. You can change the tuning in either quarter notes, which is really cool, or the fine tuning. Whoops, got to do that. All right, next on this page you have the volume. Now the volume is actually the envelopes, and these envelopes are really, really cool, innovative way to do that. You can have up to 6 stages on the envelope, and all you need to do to add stages is hit this plus button. Okay, you can either be linear or exponential. We'll leave it on exponential. Hit the plus button. You can create the 6 stages. This is the first stage here. Okay, and you note the stages here, they have numbers associated with them. Those are associated with the knobs here. So that can change the time, or here you can change the amplitude. And obviously you can still do this with your finger. And you'll note here, because I left that above the 0 point, it'll actually be able to create a drone. You can take one of these and let's say number 3 here, and I can make that the sustain point. So that's really cool. You can select whether or not you want the same point to be skipped, any point above it, any point before it to be skipped, or you just want it to play through. So that's skip on release. So if you release before it reaches the same point, it'll still keep moving. If you turn that off, you'll see what happens. It still goes through the entire envelope. Okay, next you have the mod page. You can set the velocity sensitivity and how the LFO affects the amplitude modulation, as well as the FM modulation. And you can scale that to across the keys. And lastly, you have a pitch envelope. So this works very similarly to the other envelopes. You can create different segments. So you have that for every operator. Very, very cool. Very, very powerful. Now let's take a look at the other segments that are available on the main voice page. As I mentioned, you have the bass one. Here you also have a randomizer. Now this can randomize the frequency of each individual oscillator, its filter that I'm going to talk about in a minute, the volume, the amplitude, e.g., the envelope there, the pitch, its algorithm, and the levels. So keep pushing that button and hope for good things. But you can also say, I don't want to change all this other stuff. I just want to change, say, the algorithm. You can do that. You have an LFO here that has different waveforms. Those LFO waveforms are the same waveforms that you would use as the sound generators in the operators. So that's really cool. And you can do a warping, a mask. There are 12 different masks. Obviously, you can set the speed. They can be MIDI synced. You can set the delay of the onset, and you can have an envelope of attack. You can change the phase. You can make the phase random, and you can make all of the LFOs common to all of the operators so they work in sync together. Let's talk about the filter. All right. Now, you'll see here it created a filter envelope. When I did the randomization, here again, let's see here, I can create my own filter envelope. Now here, it's very interesting. It works differently than you might expect to see on other synthesizers. Other synthesizers, you would normally see an envelope amount. In other words, the amount that the envelope affects the filter. The way this works is that it has a dry-wet control, and that means it's like the way that the filter is driven from the operator. So essentially, it's like a mixer between the dry and the wet signal. If you want to get a lot of richness out of the filter, you need to max that out. Okay. And also there's the resonance, obviously. If you want to make the filter a little bit more thinner, you can obviously put more dry signal into it. So let's try that. And that allows it to have a different effect on the filter. Now you need to play with that, I found, with the filters to really get the right setting. If you have a very simple sound coming from the operators, you're really going to need to max that out in order to drive the filter enough to get a real response out of it. However, if you have a very complex sound, you don't want to drive it too much because then it'll get very nasty kind of sounding. It can get very gritty. You may be looking for that, but that's essentially the effect of it. All right, next we're going to look at the mod matrix. This is really, really awesome here. You have the ability to create these different sources. Okay. Say, for example, you have poly aftertouch. Okay. Then you can set a destination, and those destinations can be individual for any one of the oscillators, or they can be global destinations. Now, the menu for is different for each one. Say, for example, on the operator one, you have this menu that's available. obviously it's going to be different than the global menu. But a huge selection of sources and destinations. And then you can set its offset and then the ratio. We actually have a pan envelope, another really cool thing. Again, they work very much like the other envelopes. Now, one thing I want to mention about the envelopes is a little bit unusual. You have to set the linear and or the exponential before you make any other edits, because then this goes away and it doesn't come back. So if you want them to be linear, say, for example, you'll see that it doesn't come back. It gets replaced by the total length there. All right, so next we're going to look at the patch level. The patch level is where you can take a voice, and you can actually take a number of voices, I should say, and create one individual patch. Now, I'm going to go to this one called Sunflower that I created. You heard that earlier in the video. And we go to Edit here, and you'll see that Sunflower is actually 3 different voices that are layered together. And you can add, edit, assign all those voices as you seem fit. And then here you can actually do a number of different things. Here's where you name it. You can add effects. You can still add effects on the voice level if you want to. But here you can add effects. Let's talk about the effects real quick. You have the ability to select the output that you want the effects to go to. Remember, it has 4 different stereo pairs. And then you have the ability to set the dry and wet mix for each individual ones. They can be in series, chained, or in parallel. And then you have a huge, really good selection of effects, number of different reverbs. There's also a shimmer one. There's a couple different delays, number of different distortions, a bit crush, ring mod, phaser, rotary, equalizer, auto-wah, a phase shift. There's that extra delay here, the long tap one, and a shimmer, and an interesting effect that sends it into a mono mix. So in some cases that may be interesting for you. Now I just really want to say that I think that the effects are really, really good. Particularly the reverbs sound nice, the distortions sound nice. Many of the other ones sound nice. The long tap and these shimmer sound nice. The chorus, I think, is a little understated sounding, in my opinion. With the chorus, say, for example, as I mentioned, as well as the phaser, you really do need to drive the FX input in order to get a lot out of it. All right, so let's go back. And we can look at the different menu options here. The first menu options allows you to set the volume for each individual layer. You can also set split points if you want to have the layers split across the keyboard. And the great thing about that is there's an unlimited amount of layers that you can put into here. It's only limited by the amount of voices that are available. You can set the pan, the transpose. You can set the tuning. You'll see I've offset the tuning on some of these. And then you can create like a round robin, so it'll round robin through the different layers that you want. So that's really cool. And you'll see here with the different layers what I've done is I've created subtle changes with them. I've actually copied the layers from that original one, the sun shower number 1. And then I made some different changes back in the voice mode to try to give them a little bit different texture. And then you also see that I changed the panning to give it a nice panning spread. Okay. One thing I want to mention when we were talking about effects before that I think can be improved on, let's go back to, here, I'll show you the delays. You'll notice that the delays do not have a sync. That could be really helpful. And the other thing is that they are in resolution of 0 to 127, the MIDI resolution. They are not in any time stamped resolution, say, for example. So you really don't know what 110 means in terms of actual time. Whereas other things do have actual millisecond resolution. Say, for example, if you go to a envelope, all right, if I select that, you'll see it's actually at 2.1 seconds. So that actually has a timestamp associated with it. I just wish that both of those would match. So even if it doesn't sync, I can still sync it manually. All right, so the next level up from patch mode is the performance mode. This is where you can create a 16 MIDI channel, multi-timbral type of patch. You can run it from an external sequencer. And with that external sequencer, you can have a full MIDI experience with this, and you're probably never going to run out of voices. So that's really, really cool. You can also set this up for an MPE template like I've done here, where each individual channel will run its own MPE parameters. So for example, right now I have it on just single channel. So you'll see here it's just running through channel 1. If I change my controller, give me a moment, to MPE mode. Okay, I just changed it. And you'll see that each individual note will come on all different channels. So that really lets you do MPE where you can control the individual notes with each individual pitch, as well as the Y-axis that is available on MPE controllers. All right, so I'm going to jump back into the patch mode here, and I'm going to slide down here to this program I called VSB. What is VS? VS is the cool voice sequencer. So I want to talk a little bit about that. This is not your daddy's voice sequencer per se. It's not the type of note sequencer that you can input step by step. You know, the individual notes. There are 16 steps that are available. It is not necessarily a traditional parameter sequencer either. It's kind of simplified, but also kind of different. So it's really, really cool. The way it works is that each one of these given steps here is a different playback of the different layers that are here. So for example, in this one, that was the sample that you had heard before that I played. Each individual beat has its own duration. It has the ability to set the time. You can quantize it, but it will only play that given sound. So if I go back and just play this individual sound, say, for example, on the voice, you'll hear the different sounds here. Those are the different sounds that make up this individual patch, which are now voice sequenced into this whole, sound experience. So, for example, you can take these, you can move them around, obviously, with your finger, right? You can take it, you can quantize it to wherever it is you want. Let's change it a little bit. And we'll go over here, change that up here, quantize that. You can change the duration, say for example. Okay, you can do that with the jog wheel. Oops, no, here. Number 2 is the duration. Okay, and then you can also change the pitch of the individual note. Now, this is where this is different. The pitch you don't set by note numbers. You actually set it by its offset in terms of the original note that you're playing on the keyboard. So here it's set to plus a tritone, but if I wanted to set that up to, say, an octave, okay, I can either do that with the knob or with the touchscreen. Okay, I've changed it a little bit to give it a little bit different character. Say I can do that on these other ones. Just randomly. See what happens. Okay, so that's how the voice sequencer works. It's really interesting the way it works. It's different. I do hope they develop it a little bit more to give it a little bit more traditional type feel, yet still have the uniqueness that's available with this. It's almost like a horizontal tracker type setup, so that's really cool. All right, so lastly in the video, I want to talk a little bit about the global functions. Just really quick. This is really great. This MIDI page. Okay, you can select the velocity curves, your global transpose, the global channel. Here you can filter messages. This is going to be really important if you're running a sequence that has 16 channels. Here you can set up the RTP MIDI. Here you can select the notes of which the preview button plays, so you can change that. This is a message monitor. It is in hexadecimal format. Honestly, I don't know what uses would be to an end user. I wish they would change it to regular, just MIDI format, note number, velocity, CC commands, so you can see it better. But to an engineer, I think that's really great. This can give you all the CC statuses. Okay. And this becomes really important because what I didn't show you in the performance mode is that you can actually set these up, these knobs for different CC commands, and then you can real-time control with CC the different parameters in there. That's a little really deep stuff. It would take a while for me to show, but you can do that. It can actually load MIDI files and play them back, so that's really cool. And it could be a USB host or the USB device port here, so you can plug your controller directly into it. Here you can set the tuning, the equal tuning. It already has a number of different alternate tunings, and you can create your own tunings. So if you're into alternate tunings, that's really awesome. Here you can draw your own waveforms. Okay, as I showed you before. You can take those, you can smooth them out. You can offset the DC, you can do a crossfade, maximize, you can create a harmonic. Really fun stuff there. Here you can sort the patches. Won't go through all that. You can adjust the display. And here you can actually adjust the appearance. This isn't the stock display appearance that it comes with. I changed a bunch of different things, just for what I like. Here you can store patches. You can take them on and off. Here you can monitor the audio and the voice allocation. Here you can monitor the audio and the voice allocation. Probably should use a different patch to demonstrate that, but you can monitor that output and it can show you all the different voices that are being used, all 300 of them. 300. That's awesome. Has a touch piano. System functions. This video is based on firmware 4.1. And then a reset. Well, hey, that's it. This is the Kodamo EssenceFM synthesizer. FM synthesis really made simple, and that means a lot. I really like this. I'm very sincere about that. I have bought other FM synthesizers in the past, and like a lot of folks, I started to work with the UI, try to make something out of it, design some new patches, and then, after a lot of button pushing and menu diving and so forth, I said to myself, I ain't gonna mess with this. And then it becomes some kind of awesome preset machine. Not with this. You can easily dive into it and make a lot of great sounds and learn a lot about FM synthesis that you never could really get to before. So I want to congratulate Kodamo for doing an excellent job on that. And the other thing that's really important about this, it sounds awesome. I've played a lot of sounds in this demo. They were all sounds that I created just over the last few days. They were very easy to create, and I thought they really sounded great. And I'm only really just scratching the surface of what this can do. The ability to layer is just amazing. And you can really get some awesome soundscapes with it. So I really just want to thank you for watching this video also. Do share it, subscribe to this channel, check out tjontheroad.com for more. There'll be lots more to coming. So I appreciate your support. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.